Fans, good evening. Welcome into the Larry Krystkowiak Coaches Show presented by Smith's. We're here at the basketball offices on campus getting ready for our second to last Coaches Show. Can you believe it? We've gotten to the end of the season already. Season flies. We always talk about it. It gets here, you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, and then it flies by. So this week and next week are our last two Coaches Shows. So we'll talk Utah basketball for the next hour, talk about the split on the Washington trip, talk about the one game this week in Colorado, the craziness that is the Pac-12 Conference, where not much separates number 2 through number 7 or 8 right now. So we'll get into that a little bit. Players of the Week awards. And any questions you guys might have, you can text them or tweet them to me at ESPN 700 Bill on Twitter. And you can also text them at 877-353-0700. So if you have a question about Utah basketball, state of, what's going on, some questions for Coach, any of that stuff, we'll answer your questions tonight. 877-353-0700. We welcome those of you watching in on the University of Utah YouTube channel, streaming it online today, and of course those listening driving home from work tonight, wherever you may be. Thanks for letting us in your ear tonight. We'll talk a little Utah basketball for the next hour or so. How are you?
Good.
You doing okay?
Yep, got 2 days off, Sunday, Monday. Got the guys out of the gym. It's the first time we've had a week between games, so a lot of guys beat up this time of year. Felt like it was a good time to do that, and we're going to tip off at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning for a practice and continue to watch some of the state tournaments which are going on.
Well, that'll be great. Yeah, the last time I saw you guys was Saturday night in Pullman, coming off a nice win. You struggled a little bit out of the gate, but then found your rhythm, made some shots, beat the Cougars on the road by about 13, and that was a game where you didn't have Timmy again. His back was bothering him. You weren't feeling very good. You had a bunch of guys that had been kind of the season had worn on them, so I thought it was a pretty good way to gut out a win against an improved Washington State team.
Well, I think we're going to look back on it, and that it's a big win for us. It keeps us in the hunt for a bye. You look back at Washington State's previous 5 games. They swept on Arizona's soil, lost a really close game, probably a game they should have won against Washington the week before, beat Colorado. So they, just a bucket or two away from playing as good a basketball, at least in the win ledger, as anybody in our conference, and they had a bunch of firepower. And as you mentioned, we came out a little bit flat in our zone. We had some confusion and went man with about 80% of the game left, and our guys really stepped up and did a nice job guarding.
I thought 2 guys in particular really stood out for me. Cedric played a really efficient game. He played all 40 minutes, and I can't remember the last time a guy played every minute of a game for you. We've had guys that have played 38 and 39 minutes, and guys that have played more than 40 when you went to overtime, but he didn't come out of the game, and he was super efficient. Shot it well, 33 points. He had 4 assists, couple of steals. But with the ball in his hands much of the game, he only had 1 turnover for you. I thought he was terrific and a good offensive catalyst.
It was great all the way around, and it really started Thursday morning at our practice. We got whipped pretty good against the Huskies, second half specifically, and we had a morning practice on Thursday, another practice on Friday morning. And there's 2 ways you can go after a game like that. And he made a decision that he was kind of seeing his senior clock tick down a little bit, and had great energy and great leadership in those practices. And I told him on the plane flying back late Saturday night that I don't think it was by chance that he played so well, because he's done those things, and that's the karma, I think, of practicing and having that lead to a good performance. Washington State isn't a high-pressure team, although they went to their 1-3-1 trap, which we've had trouble with in the past, and we had a couple quick buckets and got them out of that. And then Cedric was able to kind of play in space a little bit, and it was a great floor game.
Yeah, I thought his floor game on offense was great. There were some others who played well on offense. Parker Van Dyke had another really good game. Riley Batten had a good first half offensively for you.
Donnie
did too, and I was going to get to Donnie here in a minute, because I thought Donnie, as good as Donnie was on offense, and he had 16, I thought his defense was terrific. Robert Franks is as good a scorer as there is in the Pac-12 Conference. I don't know where that guy will play at the next level, but he'll play professionally somewhere. And he begins the game with 22 in the first half, and he's hitting NBA threes. He's getting to the basket using those long arms of his. And then the second half, Donnie was the primary on him. I don't know what you told Donnie at halftime, but you stuck him on him. Frank's only had 7 points in the second half. So what was the plan once you put Donnie on him?
I think Donnie really liked that challenge. That might have been a situation that in normal circumstance maybe Timmy's on him. But you kind of go to your Tier B defender,
Right.
and Donnie, set the tone and made it clear that he's capable of doing that. That was big, and Donnie's playing with some energy on both ends of the floor now. Been kind of up and down recently, and there's a correlation with us playing well as a team and Donnie playing well. And I told him that, actually yelled that at him Saturday morning in our shoot around when we were getting going. It took him a minute to get going because we had an earlier shoot around, and I kind of blew a gasket and slammed the ball down and just said, "Hey, we can't win without you, and you need to jump on board." And he hit his first 2 threes, which always helps a player, but he needs to get to the point where he's coming with that kind of energy, and approach it that way. And then, as showed in that game, the offense will come.
Yeah, it was not just his defense, which was terrific. He had 16 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and I think 3 steals. He had a huge block shot too, which he got called for a foul on afterwards, which I never
quite
got.
saw one like that.
I haven't either. He went up, he blocks the ball on the backboard, then he comes down, and you've got to be allowed to land after you jump. And they called him for a foul because he landed on top of a guy after he blocked a shot. I'd never seen that before.
It was an after the shot foul. I don't know. I was super confused as well. That was at the other end of the floor.
Yeah.
I know our video people have taken a look at it, and we talk a lot about referees. I watch other leagues. I coached at Montana for a while. I coached in the CBA. Those are kind of teeth-cutting exercises, and so you get accustomed to some shaky officiating from time to time. It's kind of like it goes. The elite referees are going to be in the elite games, NBA-wise and so forth. And in the Pac-12, we've been real fortunate for the most part. We get a really good crew, but it's it's not an easy job. There's so many plays happening all the time. But that one kind of was. That one was a little dumbfound deal for me. I was trying to sort it out.
Yeah, we were too. I'm sitting next to a guy that's played basketball at a pretty high level, been around it for a long time, in Jim Soto, and he'd never seen anything like it either. Either way, it was a great defensive play by Donnie to block that ball on the glass, and you got good, subtle performances from a lot of different people. Everybody that played for you scored the other night. Charles Jones didn't score big, but he hit a big 3, and you kind of stuck him when we were trying to find something to slow Robert Franks down. I'll say this about Chuck, he's not real big, but he didn't back away from a fight, does he?
No, he's probably the junkyard dog on our squad, which we need. He plays with a lot of enthusiasm, and I know his season hasn't gone the way he probably assumed it was going to go from an offensive point of view. He scored so many points in junior college, but his defense, and that was a kid that we didn't think was going to play. He didn't even go out and start warming up with our team because he had the flu, and it wasn't until maybe 5 minutes left before tip-off, and I saw him brushing his hair and running out on the court, and he said he was going to give it a go. And I just reminded him I've had a couple of my best games of my life when I've been deathly sick. So he took care of the defensive end, and I thought he got in Ellenby's space a few times. Ali, the little point guard that had been scoring so well for him, and Cedric and Parker playing as many minutes. We needed that guy to come off the bench and have an impact for us on the defensive end.
Well, I'll say this, there's not always been a lot of juice in that building when we've played there. They don't always draw great at Washington State. There was a little juice there the other night, and I think that helps both teams. You always think about that home court advantage, but playing in an empty gym is a weird thing sometimes when you're used to playing in at least half full or three-quarter full gyms. So even though it wasn't sold out, I think the juice might have helped you guys a little bit too the other night.
Well, I was thinking the same thing when I walked out the tunnel. Because I told our guys, we're going to need to be mentally ready because you're not going to get a big boost from this crowd. And I think maybe a little easier time of game tip-off at 5 on a Saturday. And I walked out. I was, at least the student section was there.
Right.
Some other seats were bare. But there was a little heartbeat in the arena. And I didn't walk in as I have in years past, where you say, man, I hope the kids can get going through this one, So that could have been helpful. It was that they were engaged and that their team's been playing well, so they should be supported.
Yeah, either way you look at it, it's a good split. They didn't play well Wednesday night, but you bounced back and play well, and now you still are in that top 4. As of today, with 3 games remaining, you control your own destiny for that bye in the Pac-12 tournament.
Yeah. I was really impressed with our performance for 17 minutes of the game.
Oh, at Washington?
At Washington.
Yeah, it was good.
We were really good defensively. We were as good as we've been all year as far as our grading that we do at following each game. and there were 2 mistakes right before half that cost us 6 points, and I think that was the deficit at halftime, 6 or 8 points.
Well, it's 33-27.
Yeah, so, it's just those details. It's those little things. But I think, not woulda, coulda, shoulda, but if you go in the locker room where you're a possession away as opposed to making 2 mistakes, I thought that was costly. And then we just didn't have an answer for their defensive energy in the second half. But still, we're not the first team to go in there and have problems. So I was proud of our guys, and I was particularly proud of the way that we bounced back after that one.
It was a good bounce-back win for the Utes on Saturday night over Washington State. They sit at 15-12 overall, but 9-6 in the Pac-12. 3 games remain. Colorado this Saturday. It's a full week off. We'll talk about what the week will entail. And then the final 2 games of the season are at the Huntsman Center the following Thursday and Saturday against USC and UCLA. Those are where you need good crowds to say goodbye to the seniors and also get these guys some W's. So we'll talk a little bit about what lies ahead this week, getting ready for Colorado, which might be the toughest of the 3 games remaining. Our show tonight being brought to you by Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch, proud sponsor of Utah Athletics, and reminding you to enjoy responsibly. Coach's Show presented by Smith's, live from the basketball building. We're back with Coach after this. This is Utah basketball from Learfield, IMG College. That was a heck of a play by Parker Van Dyke. He blocks a shot on the defensive end. Then 10 seconds later, with Robo Franks closing out on him, knocks down a 3 on the other end. That's our play of the week Presented by Pepsi and Code Red Mountain Dew. That's how you do the do, Parker Van Dyke. Well done. Parker's really having a nice stretch to finish out his career here at Utah.
Yeah, super happy for him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's stood for all the right things for a long time and has been the easiest kid to coach and a great leader for our squad, mature kid. And so it's neat to watch. You know, there's still a lot of meat left on the bone here in this season, but he's given us a great lift, I think, specifically like the second half of league. And he's playing with a lot of confidence. He's doing a nice job defensively. He's doing some things defensively that he didn't think he could do, staying in plays and walling up at the rim where before he would have kind of opened the floodgates. So it's neat. You know, he, Cedric, Bo, Novak, those guys, their senior clocks are ticking. Yeah. And you can see a little bit of a different look in their eyes. You know, we always count down the days. And I do that not just for the seniors, but I do that for these young kids to realize, man, how fast did that year go? Like you said in the open, you know. And the longer I'm alive, I think that's just life. Whether you're raising kids or having a basketball season or whatever, like we're saying, we've done this for 8 years now. You know, and sometimes the days drag on, but the years fly by, right?
That's exactly right. That's when you're in it sometimes you feel the drag, and then you look back and you're like, he and I have been doing this show together for 8 years now. And
like 6 different restaurants.
I think we finally settled on a home that we all love here at the basketball facility. But yeah, the Coaches Show flies on by, and this year has flown by as well. But this is a good week for you guys, really considering where you are with the season having kind of taken its toll physically and mentally. You have a week to take a breath. There's no travel this week until Friday. You let them go to class. You let them go to class, get into that routine again, and kind of rest their bodies a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, we look back. We've been going. It's almost 6 months since we started practice. You know, when you can start as early as you can, and we haven't had an overly deep team, and we don't. You know, we go pretty hard when we're practicing. So. You know, I felt a little beat up, and then I thought back, you know what, 3 weeks ago, we spent 5.5 days in Southern California for the Wednesday, Saturday, and then, you know, you got the weekend, and then the following week you do the same thing, Wednesday to Saturday, and it's not easy. You know, I know it's not manual labor, but for the kids to be away from class, a lot of times part of Tuesday until the following Monday is really hard, and then obviously you're in hotels and gets a little bit wore down. So it's nice to get home, you know, put the shaving kit away and not have to tap into it for a little while, and then we'll finish at home and hopefully be rested for the Vegas tournament.
What do you remember about your first NBA season and the travel? And did you remember hitting a wall? I know you didn't play a ton, but you were still in it, and you were still traveling, and you still had to practice in that.
Yeah.
You know, and that was 75, 80 games versus the 32 that you played at Montana. And I think when you started playing in the NBA, there wasn't a lot of chartered travel.
No,
you guys were flying airlines, right?
Yeah, and they had a nice little okie doke on old rookie Larry too, because I found out after the fact that you had to ride first class, but back then there weren't that many first class seats on a lot of flights, so it was all seniority, and I had my butt back in the plane. And they were supposed to reimburse you the difference, and I never did get a check from San Antonio. They just pulled the wool over my eyes on that deal. But to answer your question, they were trying to move. I found out after the fact they were trying to move all the veteran guys on our team before the trade deadline.
Right.
And so they were playing exclusively with all of these aged veterans, which was cool. But for fresh rookies like ourselves, Scotty, or there were 4 of us. It was Johnny Dawkins, Walter Berry, Kevin Duckworth, and myself.
Okay.
And we didn't play much. And then, man, we came back from the All-Star break, and we all started, and I played like 40 minutes a game. So I hit the wall at the right time. I played like 30-some minutes of games going out down the stretch. I remember Bobby Weiss was our coach, and we went to the horse track, and our last game was at Portland. And he was enjoying time with some of the players, and he said, I'm going to punish you tomorrow, because we'd had a few beers, and he said, I'm going to play you 48 minutes. And I think he did. So that was a lot of fun. But I didn't really realize what that wall was until year 2.
Okay.
You know, when you start and you can play 30 minutes a game, and the commercial flights were huge. I mean, it was unbelievable because by league rules, you had to take the first plane out the next morning.
And those are 5:30, 6 o'clock flights.
Yeah, and you're finishing, you're back at the hotel kind of unwinding from the game maybe at midnight. And I can remember it was like a sleeping pill when you'd get on a plane. I never fell asleep faster in my life, and then go through that grind with less days. So it's come a long way. My first year was with Orlando Magic, and we had our own plane, and that was like night and day. So you can see what our guys are going through a little bit.
But I'm guessing by now most of them have fought through that, and I know that the season's beat them down physically, but I'm guessing the younger guys have pushed through that wherever that freshman wall was.
I think they have. And I know one thing: the 2 days, Sunday and Monday off, aren't going to hurt them now. The days are getting a little longer. See some sunshine. You get a little spring fever, and I think that just naturally kind of coming out of hibernation kind of deal.
Yeah.
Once you hit March, it's all downhill from there, and I typically you get a little revitalized. So this timing is good. This timing, having 3 games to play with some days off, and then the homestand heading into Vegas, and then hopefully won't have to play the first night. So
you said you gave them off Sunday and Monday. So
yeah.
Off today, so they'll get back at it tomorrow. Will you just kind of ease them into the week and go a little bit harder?
No, we're gonna
hard.
We're gonna practice at 7 a.m.
Okay.
I think I told you that off air, and then that way we can get to the state tournaments. I think with 2 days off, it's not a bad thing. Get everybody to their 9:15 class. We'll feed them and kind of get our work done early. We always preach about doing your work early, and after 2 days off, it'll be kind of fun, at least for me, to get in there early and get after it a little bit.
We'll take a time out here on the Coaches Show tonight. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what lies ahead. We'll do our weekly awards, our Player of the Week and our Sub of the Week, and what lies ahead with Colorado. Tad Boyle's team, while they did lose to Washington, they're going to be a little bit different beast this time around, we assume, than the one we saw here in Salt Lake City. So that'll be coming up as well. Don't forget that game comes up at 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon from the Coors Event Center in Boulder, Colorado. Jim Soto and I will have the call of that one for you right here on the network. More of the Coaches Show ahead, presented by Smith's from Learfield IMG College. our Drive of the Week presented by Nissan. Utah fans, you can enter to win a Nissan Rogue in your team's favorite colors. A little crimson, a little white, absolutely. All you have to simply do is go to nissanusa.com/Rogue Sweepstakes. No purchase necessary, and that contest ends 3/31/19. Let's pass out our awards for the week. Player of the week and sub of the week. Which one do you want to start with?
We'll go with Ced.
Okay, Ced is our player.
Of the week. Yep, only guy in double figures at Washington. And like I said earlier, as much as anything, it was the practices on Thursday and Friday that made him the MVP. And then, as fate would have it, he had a great offensive and defensive game. A good win for us.
Yeah, he was a good all-around player on Saturday for sure. And he was the only player. He had 12 in the first half, and then they just concentrated on him every time he got it. But he'll be our player of the week. 2 double-figure scoring games for Cedric Bearfield. Our player of the week brought to you by our friends at University of Utah Health and Sports Medicine. 16 neighborhood health centers and a game plan for your family's health at U of U Health. All right, sub of the week.
We'll go with Parker.
All right.
Yep, Parker keeps getting it done. Shooting the ball really well. We had 16 threes against Washington State.
Yeah.
10 in the first half, and that we've had a few games like that. Ced's doing a nice job finding him, and Parker's really figured out guys are flying at him, and you saw it right in front of your bench.
Ball fake.
But his ball fake is a ball fake now. Earlier in the year, he would just kind of do this, and guys would stay down. He's doing a great job of selling it. It looks just like a shot, and then guys fly by, and he just kind of clicks his feet and dribbles one way, and then
there were 2 or 3 Washington State guys that flew almost into you.
Yeah, you and I
right here at the scorer's table and into the bench, and he just takes that one little dribble, sidesteps, and he's right back in motion again.
And then that's something that's evolved. It hasn't always been that way, and some of it comes with the fact that he's done a great job. He's put himself on scouting reports as being a guy that you have to fly off the line, and so that's the decision that they're making. And I know we're going to go into Colorado and face a bunch of pressure. It's always been that way. It's like it's a serious battle in there. We're both used to the elevation. Tad's team always gets after you. And so that's going to be one of the big keys for this week for us, is to make sure we simulate that kind of pressure so that we you don't want to feel like you're punched in the mouth and not used to it after this week break. So I always respect everything that those guys do. Rebounding, it's the physicality. So we have to have a little bit different demeanor going into Saturday.
Parker's our Subway sub of the week. Stop by and try one of the starting 5 signature wraps, and then go to utahjazz.com/starting5 to win a VIP experience down at a Jazz game from Subway. You mentioned Colorado when you saw them here. McKinley Wright didn't play. He was still nursing that shoulder injury. There's a lot of guys that are really important to teams in this league. Every team's got that guy that makes them very difficult, but there may not be a more important guy to the success of the team and the difference in when that guy's on the floor than what McKinley Wright means for Tad Boyle. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree with that. And I what a tough kid. I mean, I've seen there's been 2 games where his shoulders completely popped out of its socket that happened this last weekend. And he's got it all, his left shoulder's all taped up, and he just keeps battling, and tough as nails. I'm told there'll be some surgery after the season's over, but he distributes. He's super high-powered, downhill, strong, push to the basket kind of guy, and he's a great on-ball defender. So only a sophomore. And then Tyler Bay's the other kid playing really well for him, both sophomores.
Yeah.
Those kids are the one's the double-double rebound guy with the energy, and the other one's kind of the head of the snake for their offense.
Yeah, you didn't see McKinley Wright here, and Tyler Bay didn't necessarily have a good game. I think he got into some foul trouble early. I think he picked up 2 early fouls. And sometimes, even though you play in a second half, and you know this, and it goes to why you would love to see 6 fouls in college basketball, but when you see these guys pick up 2 early fouls and then sit for 18 or 17 minutes of a half, even though you come out in the second half and you play, sometimes you lose that rhythm, don't you? And sometimes you're out of it mentally.
Forget which game I was watching this weekend, but the same thing happened. 2 fouls, first 2 minutes of the game, and you think about, I think it was a rivalry weekend where they hadn't played for like 5 or 6 days. And I'm thinking, this kid just went through this whole process this week, and you come out, and even if, like, sometimes foul calls is that maybe they're not right. One of those 2 could be a block charge that's like a bang bang and it goes against you. What other sport do we have that can impact the outcome of a game so heavily on a couple little, fluke deals part of the game? I think Naismith liked the idea because he didn't want it to be physical, but we've got all these rules implemented now that keep it from being physical.
Right.
So the idea, and someone's argued with me, well, we did that back in the Big East in 1984. I said, yeah, that was a bloodbath in 1984. You know, you had hand checks and everything else, so of course you don't want to add fouls to that. But now, and every official I've talked to said they would love it, because the last thing they want to do is put a player on the bench.
There's three things here. One, it helps the officials because, let's face it, you said it earlier, it's a tough game to call.
Yeah.
And sometimes guys, especially the block charge, is as hard a call as there is in sports. And they'll miss a call. And if that call happens to be a second foul on a guy, takes it out. Referees don't want to do that, but it happens. Two, the game is bigger, faster, and more athletic than it's ever been. And three, people are paying to watch these games. People want to see the best players out there. Why would you take that out of the
short of a red card?
Yeah, exactly.
Where else do you send somebody, you know, well, a targeting call or something that's pretty defined?
Right.
But I'm really confused. It's counterintuitive to me because we've cleaned up the game. So there's even more fouls now with hand checks. So why wouldn't you add another one to put, you know, in a guy's bank so that since they're calling it clean, then let's do right by it. And I think what happens is we get into conference play and referees in the back of their mind, they don't want to make those calls. So the game ends up being a lot more physical than they're trying to score more points, kind of follow the NBA deal. So if you truly want to do that, you know, here we go. What do we spend a whole segment talking about 6 fouls?
Yeah.
But you know how I feel about it.
No, I do. And it just goes back to what I was getting around to with Tyler Bay. Terrific player for Colorado's had a really good year, but the game here in Salt Lake City that a lot of you guys may have seen, picked up 2 quickies early. Sometimes you just go over somebody's back or you reach in or something like that, and boom, you've got 2 fouls. And when it's that early in a half, you got to bring them out because you don't want to pick up that third and then missing a lot more time.
And we want our best players playing.
Exactly.
Like you said, at the end of the day, let's keep our best players on the floor.
Why do you think, I know you and Tad are good friends, probably one of the closest guys you're with in this league, but why do you think Colorado and Utah, when they play, they're such close, tight, physical affairs? Is that just because of the style both you guys coach?
Yeah, maybe so. That's very true. I mean, I think in years past, the early years, they were certainly more physical than they would out-rebound us by 20.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have a handle. We had a lot of undersized guys, but we figured it out a little bit, you know, and improved the physicality and some of that toughness. But a lot of it, I think, is that we've had a week to rest usually, you know, and you got a lot of energy stored up. Even just playing that one game versus 2, you're never catching each other after, you know, you played 2 nights before, a night before. So I know you're both really well prepared from a technical point of view, and you're obviously there's not as many injuries. You got things kind of cleared up during the week. So I think it's good for it, you know.
And the altitude thing too.
Yeah.
Other teams are impacted when they come to Salt Lake and Boulder. You guys are both acclimated to it.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And there have been a lot of close ones. Yeah,
especially over at Coors Event Center. That's where we'll be on Saturday. 4 o'clock start time is the start time for the Utes and Colorado. We'll take a time out here on the Coaches Show tonight. When we come back, a little bit about the mindset now into the final 2 weeks and then into Vegas and, of course, the jumble that is the Pac-12 Conference right now. Utah's got 3 games remaining. We'll talk about those 3 games and how it kind of all works itself out and where the hierarchy is right now. Here on the Coaches Show, presented by Smith's from Learfield IMG College. That was the big run of the game on Saturday night, down 9 to up 5, and good ball movement. Guys, you heard me say it there in the highlight. Guys passed up what were good shots for what ended up being better shots. And Parker Van Dyke knocks a 3 down. Riley Batten had a 3. Donnie Tillman had some 3s. Cedric Bearfield. 3s were falling. 10 in the first half, 16 in the ball game for Utah. So you sit, as we said earlier in the show today, all by yourselves in 4th place right now. Just a game ahead. The interesting thing now is it's kind of getting bunched up. You're in 4th, a game behind, I believe, ASU.
Half a game?
Half a game behind
I think we each
ASU.
have the same number of wins. But they have
then
one less
Oregon
loss.
State's in 2nd place, about a half a game ahead of ASU. And then USC and UCLA are a game behind you, and you'll still see them, and then they play each other this week. They kind of like you guys in Colorado will play each other this week. So it's going to, Larry, it's going to probably come down to that final Saturday/Sunday to see who's in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th spots.
I'd be really surprised if it weren't the case, you know. And we'll know a lot more, obviously, by the end of this week. The thing I'm looking at is win numbers. We only have 3 games. There's, 4 teams that only have 3 games left?
Right.
And 8 teams have 4. So, obviously, you can look at it either way. It's a chance to get one more win. But, you know, with 3 to go, if we could get that 11 number, then it makes things a little more challenging for all those teams with 7 and 8 wins to have to go 4-0 to finish their season to get more wins. So.
And nobody's really winning many outside of Washington. Haven't been a lot of 4 and 5 game winning streaks in this league. It's win a couple of games, then lose a game. That's kind of how the trend's been this year.
Yeah, and crazy enough, lose the ones at home and win the ones on the road, which is even crazier for most teams, you know. And we've done a nice job on the road, but we've got some work to do, and we'll still have 2 more opportunities to get, you know, that marginal taste out of our mouth where we haven't been real stellar at home. We need to do that, obviously, not getting ahead of ourselves, but to finish up that conference season.
And if I would have told you, though, before the season, in 8 of your first 9 road games, you'd be 6-2, you'd have hit that deal button, wouldn't you?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. No,
because usually you're happy getting splits and or maybe even 1 game either side of that split.
Yeah, and to have, you know, the California, to get those to be 4-0 in California was big for us. And then we split a couple of the others with the close one at Arizona, you know. And, you know, you can look at our season. There's probably been a couple games that we could have won, and there's probably also a couple more that could have gone the other way, you know, obviously when you look at the UCLA game. So we got a little bit of our own medicine against Oregon, I thought. That was one we let slip away because we couldn't handle pressure. And, you know, and it gets crazier all the time. Even in women's basketball with our ladies team, and I think it gets in the air. Like when something hits ESPN where a team comes back from 20 points, then I think every coach in America still thinks they can be that team to do it. And there's been way more than normal this year, you know. And I see it in our league, particularly. It happened the other night with Oregon and UCLA. We were sitting in the airport or sitting in the hotel waiting to go to the airport, and watching UCLA come back. You know, it was 16 or 18 at halftime, and next thing you know, UCLA was up 12. So there's runs that need to be stopped. And
so when you're watching this happen one way or the other, you know, when it's your team making the run, you're loving it. When you're coming back and you're kind of in the midst of that. But when you're the team that's trying to hold that lead, you've got timeouts. You and I were just talking about timeouts and utilizing them at practice. You know, is it just a feel thing for you? You just see something and, you know, like the other day, I think you called the timeout in the first 4 minutes of the game or something. Washington State went up big, and it was right before the media timeout. You just said, give me the timeout here. Is that a feel thing where you're just like, this doesn't feel right to me. Let me try and stop the bleeding here just a little bit?
Yeah, and I can remember reminding our team that they're on pace for like 140 points. You know, I looked up and did the math, and they hit all these shots. We weren't playing with any energy, and I said, this won't be the first game that a team comes out really hot and loses, but you have to start guarding them at some point. You know, we need to get some stops because Washington State's not an elite defensive team. They'll let you get some shots, but you can't keep up with the number of threes that they were hitting, and that just was a little reminder. And we switched the man shortly after that. Got some guys off the bench that played with some energy, and momentum's funny, you know. The open one, they were open. They were making open ones, and then when we were on them, they weren't making as many of them except for Frank's. So, you know, there's a correlation with actually playing great defense and being in front of a guy And there was some mishaps. I think 12 points by that timeout that we had one guy fell down, and then we had some brain lock on some switches. And when you're playing against the team, Washington State and ourselves are the two teams that shoot the largest volume of threes, and those things, as you know, they add up really fast. So you can't be making those mistakes.
Is it time of year or the team you have where you determine whether it's a screaming, lose your mind timeout or a, come on guys, you're better than this type timeout? Is that based on the situation, the team, the time of year? Maybe you yell a little more early in the year?
You know what? I wish I had a better control on my emotions to make my mind up. It's usually just kind of whatever's strikes
there.
Yeah, and that particular timeout, it felt like a time to just kind of have a chit-chat and not get too animated about it.
Sure.
There's other times, I don't call a timeout and go, okay, I'm really going to chew some ass on this one, or I better go light on them. It's just, you just kind of do your thing.
I've also seen timeouts, too, where you'll say something for a minute, then you'll walk away. Then leave it for Tommy or leave it for Andy or leave it for DeMarlo to do the rest of it. You'll get your quick word in there, and then you'll just kind of take a walk outside the huddle.
Yeah, and some of that is you got to get some thoughts together.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need to sit in front of your team, while you're thinking, because they're kind of looking at you, and so other people have some valuable things to input. You got that short time, and kind of go get your thoughts together. So it's a lot of fun, man. It's so much fun to still be a part of the game. I pinch myself to get before a game, you get all nauseated and up, nervous, and that competition. I just don't know where else you find it. And I miss that from the playing days, and now you can jump right in it and keep it going. I don't know if it keeps you younger or if it makes you older. That's what they need to do some kind of study on the adrenaline that you burn, if that actually helps keep you younger, or if it makes you gray and bald.
Riddle me this. Why do most coaches stay in the locker room during pregame? Most head coaches are in the locker room, and I notice this because I take note. You're kind of a locker room guy. You'll come out 10 minutes or so before tip. Most head coaches are that way. You're just gathering your thoughts in there, trying to get into a good place.
I'm a creature of habit. I mean, even as a player, I wasn't the guy that was going out expending energy. Certainly in the NBA, where you only have so much energy in your tank. And I always just thought, if you're ready, when the tip goes and you're ready to play hard. I was telling my kids the other day, because they're big into all of these individual workouts. I said, Ben, my youngest boy, I said, Ben, do you know how many individual workouts I had in my life? Zero. Like zero. There was no, so things are a little different. So I've always preferred to stay in the locker room and kind of get my thoughts and write on the board and kind of enjoy that quiet calm before the storm.
You know what our individual workouts were in high school? Me and a couple of buddies going to open gym and rebounding for each other and passing for each other and playing 21. And that was
playing one-on-one,
one-on-one
two-on-two.
and 21, where you'd have three of your buddies. You wouldn't play one-on-one. You'd just play 21.
Yeah.
And that was your individual workout.
Yeah. There's nothing better on the planet for people listening with kids trying to get them better than playing 3-on-3.
Yeah.
It is the perfect.
That's the perfect driveway or open half-court gym regimen. 3-on-3 is the perfect number.
You don't spend all your time running up and down the court, and 1/3 of the time you have a ball in your hands or you're guarding the ball, and the other 2/3 of the time your teammate needs you.
Yeah.
As opposed to
setting
basketball,
the screen or
5-on-5, you better learn to play without the ball. That's where you would learn where your favorite moves are, and you get a little, feel to your game. That's what's missing right now, and so I'm encouraging my boys to just. And they got phones. We didn't have phones. I remember walking to the gym and just hoping the right people showed up so you could have a game.
We'd walk to the gym or we'd ride by the playground.
Yeah.
You'd hop on your bike and a bunch of you'd ride up and see who else was up at the playground.
Yeah.
So you'd play a game.
Yeah.
And then you'd play 3-on-3 and your incentive was don't lose, otherwise you're out for a while.
Yep. No, and I always hoped I'd show up with the older kids and I always hoped that they had an odd number and that I had to get stuck on somebody's team and get pummeled as a little kid. That's the other thing that not many people do.
Yeah, that's
everybody wants to play down now, or go back and play younger so you can be more successful. So I sounded like my dad.
That's okay.
You're listening to that music, turn that down.
That crazy rock and roll is just going to be a fad. All right, we'll come back. 2 more segments left. There'll be 2 quickies here on the Coaches Show, presented by Smith's from Learfield, IMG College. We'll be over there with the pregame at 3 on the networks, 4 o'clock tip time from the Coors Event Center. Time for our 3-question, 2-man weave. You've got 2.5 minutes. Just put that clock in the back of your head. Question number 1. You were a little sick on Saturday night. You battling the flu. I'm giving you the choice. You can have a cough or a cold for 10 days or just 24 hours of the flu. What are you taking?
Oh, I can't do the flu.
Really?
Yeah.
You'll take the cough or cold annoying you for 10 days over just 24 hours and it's done.
I've really only had one bad flu when I was a young kid, and I spent the whole weekend in my bathroom doing a number of things.
Yeah.
And I've never gotten, knock on wood, that deathly sick from the flu. Get the flu shot. So.
Yeah. So he was a little sick on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Soldiered through it, and Utah got a win. All right. Best shooter you ever played with at any level? Teammate of yours. Who was the best shooter?
Dale Ellis.
Oh, yeah. Was that with the...
He was with the Bucks.
Bucks, yeah.
Quick release, 6'7", long, perfect form. His nickname was, that's when the war started and they had the Scud missiles. I nicknamed him Scud.
Imagine him in today's NBA, where the three-point shot is such a bigger part of the game and the range that was there.
Yeah, no, unbelievable. He, and obviously Steve Kerr was a heck of a shooter as well, but those two rank at the top.
Yeah, Steve's only issue was he was a little smaller. Dale, you mentioned 6'7". All right, last question. When you're traveling, I always have this conversation with people. This is a mountain I die on. What's more important, a good bed or good pillows? In the hotel. Good bed or good pillows, what's more important to you?
Well, a bed.
Really?
Look, if you give me a really hard flat bed, it's over. Doesn't matter what kind of pillow I have. I got a chance if the bed's normal, and I think you can always get creative with clothes or whatever to give you. But I am a pillow fan too.
Yeah. For me, it's the pillows. I can sleep on. You can put me on some plywood, but if I have good pillows, I am good to go.
You need to get far more rest. I can tell.
You think?
You do a heck of a job, Riley.
Thank you.
Not bad.
That's it. 3 questions, 2-man weave. He and I will be in Boulder on Saturday. We'll talk to you then. Last Coaches Show next week. Enjoy it. This is Learfield, IMG College.